You may not have noticed it, but a few days ago, a moment that will be remembered in history just went down. For the first time, a enemy position was cleared out using entirely ground and air drones. Just what does this mean for the future of warfare? And more importantly, why did the Ukrainians roll out an army of ground combat drones to take out a Russian trench? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is a really interesting story. Ukraine's first all-robot assault force, it says, just won its first battle. This is from a Ukrainian National Guard brigade who was operating in Kharkiv Oblast. And they sent dozens of units of robotic and unmanned equipment simultaneously just on a small section of the front. Now, we've talked earlier on this channel about how Ukraine is using ground combat drones similar to the one shown here on a training ground, as well as FPV drones, reconnaissance drones, and more in order to conduct combat operations without putting their individual soldiers at risk. Ukraine, with its much smaller military, has to pull out all the stops to make it as efficient as possible. Right now, David Axe, who is pretty good, I think actually misses some stuff here. He says it was an impressive technological feat and a worrying sign of weakness on the part of overstretched Ukrainian forces. He acknowledges unmanned ground vehicles in particular suffer from profound limitations and can't replace human infantry, all of which is 100% true. Right? Now he argues that the 13th National Guard Brigade need to replace all the human beings in a ground assault. Speaks to how few people the brigade has compared to the Russian units it's fighting. I think this is not quite a full assessment, right? And my reason, I think this was a small proof of concept attack. Can you coordinate ground drones and FPV drones in an assault? It was less about, do you not have the people? And it wasn't. This likely was not about desperation and more about proof of concept, right? Is this a scalable thing? It was also about gathering data. Just what does it mean to have ground and FPV drones and reconnaissance drones work in conjunction? And remember, because all those are operated by individual soldiers. So you haven't had fewer soldiers necessarily, but what you did experience is far fewer risk to those soldiers, right? Now, what's interesting is they recognize that the actual assault itself, the 13th National Guard Brigade, holds about a 5-mile stretch of line with about 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers, holding back multiple Russian regiments, about 4 Russian regiments or around 6,000 Russians. So any tools the Ukrainians have to improve that ratio, they're going to use. Right? The Ukrainian operation involved remote-controlled flying, surveillance, and mine-laying drones. One-way explosive. That's an elaborate way of saying kamikaze ground robots, kamikaze air drones, as well as the classic ground drones armed with machine guns. Now, a Ukrainian ground robot cleared a Russian trench in Kursk Oblast several months ago. So this is, again, I think what we're seeing is a scaling up of this operation. Now, David Axe has some issues. I'm going to talk about those issues and why, again, I think he's sort of not seeing the bigger picture here. But before I mention that, I wanted to mention that we are doing one final fundraiser with UAO to support Ukrainian units who need drones, reconnaissance drones, FPV drones, jammers, and we are getting them, right? These are the units that helped me out during my trip to Ukraine. We've been starting to drop some of the content one after the other here. And so this is units like the 93rd Brigade, the National Guard, the 25th Liu, 241st Rubiza, and the Presidential Brigade are all asking for help. They all helped me out. I'm trying to do right by them. So if you're interested in supporting these guys, basically if you buy them a drone, they will give you a patch, and every drone you buy them gets you more and more swag. So, this sort of patches, coins, these things are exactly worth what you do to earn them. And boy, knowing that you put rounds and crowns of Russians and help these guys hold the line is a huge feather in your cap, man. You see on my usual office, I display those patches with pride because I know what I did for those soldiers, and meeting them, you don't understand. These are not like supplements that we fund for them. These are essentials, right? They get minimal equipment from their central command. Like, to give you an idea, they don't get paper from Central Command. If they want to print something out, they have to buy it on their own. So when you see a screen, when you see drones, when you see anything, it's fundraised by us, right? It's not a case of, oh, if we can't use the drones that UAO and Combat Vet Reaction, his viewers, raise for us, we just use the government drones. No. If we don't fundraise their drones, then the infantry just don't get drone support. So this makes a huge difference. It actively saves lives. I can attest to that. So let's talk about, so the link is in the description. So definitely donate. And because also, remember, UAO is a 501c3 in the US, which means when you donate, it's tax deductible. So get your taxes right. Get that tax credit. All right. Don't play. So, okay. Here's what's interesting. It says, while robots are adept at surveilling and attacking, they're terrible at holding. To hold ground, you need infantry in trenches. They sit, watch, wait, and call for reinforcements when the enemy attacks. It's tedious, taxing duty that requires constant vigilance. And it's difficult when a human operator is observing through a maintenance-hungry ground robot because machines break down, they can be jammed, links can be broken. And what I think is interesting is that it is so casualty intensive to go on the attack. That's why the Ukrainians basically stopped doing it. And they said, Russia, you go on the attack, because Russian forces are incurring massive casualties as they continually have to come out of their trenches, expose themselves, and push into Ukrainian positions. And while the Ukrainians only retreat, that is a function of their strategy. It is not a sign necessarily of weakness, but obviously they're outnumbered by the Russians. So if you can automate the portion or the most deadly part, the assault portion, and right, if you've seen any of the Ukrainian Foreign Legion footage, you know that the guys like the Chosen Company, they assume massive risk conducting even small scale assault operations. So if you could automate assault operations and then just have infantry advance in a second line function, you're going to reduce the likelihood of casualties. You're going to reduce those infantry casualties tremendously. And when you have a high amount of funding and a low amount of soldiers, using equipment to do what a soldier could do is absolutely going to be worth it. Again, what is a soldier worth? Is it worth one of these ground drones? I would argue the answer is probably yes. And as Ukraine experiments more and more with this sort of combined arms drone assault, you're going to see them get better and better, and you're going to see it be more common, where a Russian trench is, let's say, 80% clear, the most deadly part of the operation, approaching, engaging those first couple bunkers, is done via drones, and then it's followed by a Ukrainian infantry squad, who then takes up positions and holds the line in conjunction potentially with those ground assault drones. That is going to produce far fewer casualties than that absolute maximum dangerous moment of approaching an entrenched Russian position. If you can outsource that onto a drone element, you are going to make a massive difference. Anyway, guys, that's really all I had. One of the reasons I think this is so historic is, again, because it represents the first time we're seeing the robotification of warfare. Anyway, that's all I had. Thank you to folks like Martin Baum, Chris Rossi, Stuart Abel, Daniel Brown, Sergei Zinchenko, Chris Holmes, Chris Gorsuch, Daniel M, Ida Skycall, all our lieutenant tier members, all the colonel tier members. I couldn't do it without you guys. And I will see you all in the next one. We're going to have a slightly truncated schedule here going into Christmas. Spend time with your families. And I will see you guys afterward. Cheers.